I'm Dr. Jill Johnson. I've spent my entire career in education. I started in the classroom, then trained teachers, and most recently served as a high school administrator. Now I help highlight the stories, struggles, and successes in educating the next generation of content creators. Welcome to CGTV.
Adi, it is so fun to have you here. I've known Adi for a number of years. And now, for a lot of the remote audience, you might not know that we are across the street from a football stadium, right? So, and it is a large football stadium. When they kick off at the football stadium, for those of you, any Husker fans here in here? Okay, so what happens when they kick off in the student section? What do people do? They hold their shoe up. Adi, I think we need a little help understanding why did they put their shoe up?
Well, I think it did start around 2007.
2007?
Yeah, that's right. When I got to Nebraska, I ended up being the kickoff specialist, and my first game, and we hadn't had touchbacks the year before, not that many at least, but my first game I had 6. And so the student section was getting pretty excited about that, and so they started holding their shoe up, and it was pretty fun.
Super fun. So, Adi, you were a kicker for Nebraska. Obviously, big leg. You're kicking it through the end zone, and now students are still holding up their shoe for that. So that's awesome.
But too bad there was no NIL back then.
Yeah, so you weren't getting paid for that.
Nothing happened.
But you did kick
cool.
a little bit in the NFL as well, and. Tell us a little bit about what happened after your college career and how you started getting involved in sports and marketing and all that.
Sure. So this started while I was still in college. My co-founder and I, Blake Lawrence, who Ben also knows really well, both entrepreneurs, we co-founded a company called Herdat. It was a social media agency at the time. This was in 2010, kind of the summer of us heading into our senior year of college. And I don't know why we wanted to start a company, but actually I do know why. Blake had too many concussions, couldn't play anymore, got an internship, this is like 2009, was creating value for a local company using social media. And one night over beers, he's telling me that they're paying him to be their social media marketing intern and that he's driving leads using like LinkedIn and writing blogs, and I didn't believe him. So as he's telling me more about it, I prompted him. I'm like, hey, what if we just did this for other companies who had the same issue and who didn't have the time, the resources, the knowledge? And again, like, this is 2009. People are not thinking of social as like a business utility, right? It is more so, if you have a business, maybe your son or daughter is the one that gets the job to be the social media person. And so we started tackling that problem and for companies and businesses around, and we were 2 years into running Herdat, and being former football players, a lot of our teammates were going off and playing in the NFL, including myself, and we started having a lot of the brands that we were working with say, hey, can you connect us with some of your teammates? We'd love to have them talk about us on social. And so we started brokering these deals, and one of the things that we realized, and mind you, this is 2010, Nebraska had 10 guys that ended up on active rosters in the NFL that year from my class. I was one of them. And so we had just a very high caliber group of athletes, tons of influence. And so
who was the highest paid out of that class?
Prince Amukamara was drafted in the first round. And he was actually one of our buddies, came to us and it's like, hey, Blake, Adi, you guys are the social media guys. I've got brands asking me to do, they want to work with me. How much should I charge? What should I say? When should I say it? Where, like all these things. And so we did a little bit of searching and we're like, wait, there's really no solution for this. Why don't we build a company that is sort of, if you can think of like an Amazon.com, find all the athletes you want to work with, click on their profile, and then you're able to pitch them an opportunity and actually share the content that you want them to post on a specific channel. They get a text that says, hey, do you want to say this on Facebook for $500? On Facebook at 2 p.m. on Thursday. If they click approve, that content would be automatically scheduled, and it would go out on their channel. They would get paid. Everyone's happy. And that was Open Doors that we launched kind of midway through our journey with Herdat, and then the next 15 years happened.
So you got you now have the largest marketplace for college athletes and
That's right.
pro athletes. You also have a contract with the NFL, right?
NFLPA. Yeah.
Yep. To help place athletes and marry them with brands, correct?
That's right. That was certainly like where a lot of our early roots were started. Yep.
Cool. So we're here talking about the content, right? And you're working with big time athletes, helping them both sell themselves and then sell that to brands. How do you determine a value of a social media profile, right?
That's a great question. So I'm going to back it up a little bit because I kind of think I know where this could go and this could be valuable for everyone here. So the notion of influence and the influencer word, and maybe the category of athlete influencer was something that very much early on we were able to I don't know to say pioneer, but we created that term. Because we wanted to be able to separate your traditional mommy blogger from the NFL player, right? Because a mommy blogger cannot catch a touchdown on Sunday, right? The athlete is
yet.
Yeah, sure, yeah, maybe they can in the future, for sure. But we wanted to, and not in a negative way or a bad way, but we wanted to be able to make the distinction that there is the influencer who is a core creator. They wake up in the morning and they're creating content. That's what they think about. That's what they do. Then there's the athlete who is not necessarily a creator. There's maybe 10% of them who naturally gravitate towards that, but they are, for the most part, they have influence and they have following because they run fast, they jump high, right? And they're one of one, right? There's 1,000. I keep using mommy bloggers. You can put any other category, whatever you want. Fitness influencer, doesn't matter. But there's one of one. There's only one Odell Beckham Jr. There's only one Tom Brady. There's only one Peyton Manning. And so we try to make that the unique case for why brands would want to work with athletes. So on one hand, we're trying to create demand with brands to want to work with athletes. On the other hand, we're trying to help athletes understand, here is how you should think about what your brand is online so that brands want to work with you, right? So frequency was a big thing, right? If you're never sharing, you might have following, but if you're never posting and every now and then you have a sponsored post, people are going to be like, this is not authentic. I don't believe in this, right? Helping them understand both not just the frequency, but also what they share matters, right? If you're just uploading stories of you at a nightclub, cool, dude, nice for you, maybe for your friends to see, but not what advertisers or brands are going to be interested in. And then also just letting athletes know that it is very important for them to embrace the journey and share in the journey. That is probably the most sought after content when it comes to athletes is what is the behind the scenes stuff, right? You can see us playing on the field, on the court, and we're having great games and whatnot, but what everybody's really interested in is what is the media not putting out there, because literally they don't have it. You are your own channel, and the story you're able to tell and the timeliness of when you're telling that story was so important. So much of the education that we did with athletes early on is hey, you should post frequently as much as you can, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever makes sense with your brand. You should have some foundation for how you want to be portrayed and the types of content that you want to share. And you have to also understand what makes the things that you share unique and different. And then over time, now athlete influencer, maybe it is synonymous with an influencer, but certainly athletes, I think, going into school now, D1 programs, they have a completely different mindset on how they prepare to not just play the sport, but build their brand during that window that they have while they're playing.
So when we think about an athlete like, down the street here, we have Harper Murray, arguably the #1 volleyball player in the U.S., and she's doing a lot of content that is not necessarily just for a brand, right? She's also making a lot of daily content, things like that. How does that affect? I mean, you're kind of talking about frequency, but it's not all branded content. She's not getting paid for every post, right?
Sure. I think she for sure falls into, like, I would say, in that unique category of an athlete where it is inherently natural for her to sort of vlog, like daily, like share things that she's doing, right? She's a natural. I don't anything that I've seen that she's put out that's sort of the day-to-day, it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like she's like trying to build for anything. It's just like, hey, I'm just sharing like what's going on in my life. That stuff is really good. It has to match who you are. You have to be comfortable with it. It has to be genuine and authentic, like, and that works really great. And certainly I think that, so I don't know how much intention she has behind, like, I want to do this, but what's appealing about that then for like an Adidas, right, or any brand that wants to work with her is they know, hey, her audience is very tuned in with her, right? They're going to keep seeing her content. They're going to stay engaged. So when we do a partnership and she drops in something about us, it will almost certainly not feel forced. It will feel more authentic, and it will feel more like she is truly promoting, endorsing, whatever, championing the brand that she's working with, right? Whereas someone who's maybe a little bit more reserved and whatnot, they might not come off as natural, which is also okay, but it will be almost like, hey, I'm now seeing this feels a little bit more co-opted, whatever. So I think someone like her and athletes that fall into that category, they definitely have a certain sort of appeal for sponsors and brands, just because they're like, hey, this is like, it's going to be easy to work with them. The creative process can be, we'll give her autonomy, and the end product ends up being something that is always, like a good outcome.
So one of the things that's great about sports, how many of you follow somebody on sports that you're like, hey, I really like this athlete, right? Like, one of the things I always like, like I've gotten the chance to chat with Emmett Johnson, or running back, and he's fantastic. And he's got a great personal story behind it. In fact, Husker Football highlighted some of that this past week, and he ran for 100 and some yards. So he's a really good athlete, but like, I know actually a lot about him personally, both from things he said, but then also things that he posts online. How does that play in? You kind of talked about this with Harper, but how do you blend that personal profile with who you are as an athlete on the field, right?
Sure. I think that the best way, like, this is if I was giving someone a recommendation, is like, if you don't over-index on what should I post, how many times, like, the most natural stuff comes off naturally because it is natural. Right? The most authentic stuff comes off authentic because it is authentic. You're not trying to fabricate. So I think the balance really comes down to whatever your like inherent social media personality is, works really well. Now, can you evolve and grow into something? Like, so you can have basically maybe set some goals, and you're like, maybe I'm a little bit more introverted. I'm not as comfortable sharing. You can sort of strive to be like, I want to be more like this. But that should only be used for, like, inspiration. And you should know, like, hey, I'm my own personal brand, and the way that I use social and the way that I share things is eventually going to evolve, and it'll be mine. I think the more that you try to just copy other people, I think it'll come off disingenuous, and it won't really work the best. So I think that balancing those things is just like, what do you care about the most? Like, if you care more about like all the personal stuff and that comes off easy, then probably a lot of your content is going to be that, and it's going to work really well. If you're more like, hey, I just love to talk about Husker football because that's what I do, and I've got my media accessible, and I love to share pictures and like really short captions, and that's a way for me to still engage with my audience, and I'm like more of a in the comments kind of person. Like, sweet, do that. But I think the balance is almost like, what is natural to you, and then you use that as kind of at least a directional guide for it.
How do different sports play in? I know Blake and I were talking one day, and he's talking to me about how hockey was so different than working with like if he's working with Justin Jefferson over the Vikings, and now he's working with hockey. Like all of a sudden, they're just very different. Like that personality is super different.
Absolutely, different athletes, different sports. Certainly, and if you're within the context of maybe interacting with athletes, even for brand deals, like hockey's a great example. Historically, just like hockey players, they've got an edge. They've got their own thing. They're maybe not going to be as involved with sponsors than, say, I don't know, like football or volleyball or baseball. Like it's just like, and sometimes, and then you have like the breakouts. You have, I don't want to say anomalies, but you just have the smaller margin. Like you still have some NHL players who are really good creators, and they're just kind of like trying to break the mold or whatever the culture is of that. So I think it truly does vary by sport. And every now and then, I think every sport has sort of like, 1, 2, 3, maybe sometimes 5 athletes that come to mind when you think of social media and this sport, right? Yeah. It could be like a Livy Dunn for gymnastics, right? Or college sports. It could be like a Harper Murray for volleyball. And they sometimes end up being sort of like the guy that everyone's trying to aspire to, right? And so that can at times. So it's like if there was a hockey player that was really good on social, I think that could have an impact, because people just need inspiration. That's all it is. Is like you might be able to get more out of your shell and more willing to share if you see someone else that's doing it that is similar to you, and they don't make it seem uncomfortable to do so.
Yeah, I think for some of us, right, this may come as a shock to all of you. I didn't play in the NFL, but Adi, like there's things that I relate to with an athlete, right? And so when I reference an athlete that I really like and respect, I don't know enough about the technical aspects of what they're doing, right? Like I don't know what it's like to kick a 50-yard field goal. I've tried to kick a field goal over there, but like I don't understand the mechanics of that. But yet I like following athletes who can do those things. So maybe you can expose like how is that storytelling playing into the way I connect with someone that I physically can't do what they do, but yet I feel connected to them.
Sure. Well, I think that's a really good question. I think it goes back to like sports in general, like what being a sports fan, and more specifically a fan of a specific team, right? It is the one thing that unifies people, right? Like across everything, like you could meet someone that you've never met before at an airport, and because you're both like Nebraska fans, like you guys are going to get along really well, right? And you just like bond. So I think sports and specific teams that you're passionate about, like whether you're freaking Steelers, Cowboys, whatever, like that's a connection piece. I think in the last 15 years, so definitely in the last decade, the transformation from the team to the athlete is the thing that's shifted, right? Like you may now, maybe it's 2005 and you love the Nebraska volleyball team. Well, in 2025, you may love Harper Murray, right? Or you may love another athlete more specifically. You still love the team, but your connection to that team is more on an individual level, because they're helping you tell whatever story it is that you're trying to consume. It's an easier thing to connect with because it's a human that you're connecting with, way beyond the brand. And sometimes that individual, that one athlete can shape the way that you think about the entire team themselves, right? So I think that's like what's happened probably again in the last 15 years, is that transformation of I am just a Nebraska fan to now I am a Emma Johnson fan to now I'm a Dylan Rolla fan, and that is a way stronger tie that I have to the program than just kind of at the macro level.
And I think what you're doing is it's so interesting, because like we can name an athlete lots of times and know the brand, right?
Yes.
If I name LeBron James, what's the brand? Nike, right?
Yeah.
Like if if I name Harper Murray, what's the brand? Adidas, right? You can sort of like go down the list. Steph Curry,
Under Armour. Yeah.
Under Armour, right? Like we know those brands, and so I think what you're doing to link those is really powerful as we start thinking about how that works. Now, you and your co-founder Blake started this business together 15 plus years ago. We were kind of starting at the same time, a lot of those things. What things have you learned about being an entrepreneur in this whole journey?
Loaded question. I think that everything takes longer than you think it will. That's usually like my go-to on like what's the biggest learning point. Like you start something and you usually don't really have any expectations. You have maybe like an external like influence on what expectations should be, but everything when it comes to entrepreneurship and everything that you're building, it just takes longer than you think. And I think that like that's been, and for good and bad reasons, right? Because things just take time to develop. Building a marketplace, building a brand, establishing trust with customers, fundraising, all of these things, they sort of stack on each other. I guess the good things out of that is that if you've been in a space long enough, you are you just establish a level of trust that people will want to do business with you because you're still around, and certainly if you've done a good job of not being honest and having a brand that people are like that like they deliver, that is an exponential, like that's a multiplier. But definitely the aspect of just, if you would have asked me like early on, like if I knew it was going to take this long and it'd be this hard, I'd be like, maybe I shouldn't do that. It would have been tough.
No, I appreciate that. And sometime I'm going to ask you about how these new kickers are kicking 60 yards this year. Like, this is wild. Lots of crazy stuff happening in the NFL. But while we're talking about that, Adi, it's been great to have you here chatting about content. I think we should celebrate Adi being here and thank him. And here's to
You can take your shoe off. That's great.
here's to kicking.
Yeah. I appreciate
So,
that.
Adi, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us.
Appreciate it.